Welcome back to the Before I Forget podcast. We want to have a little rundown of the Test series, Australia versus India, one of the great Test series I've ever seen in
Mm.
our country. How the wickets were very sporting, which McGrath would have been very happy to see when he was bowling. Our players, Andre, and I don't know how you would have felt about facing the Australian attack on those type of wickets, but whenever one ball went sideways in a test, McGrath said, "It's okay, batsman. It's allowed to seam occasionally." Anyway, Andre, welcome. You're
Thank
replacing
you.
Sam, who's on holidays in Japan. Can't you? So thank you. You know much more about cricket than Sam, so welcome.
Mate, nice to be back. Thank you. Thanks for the welcome.
Yeah, and mate, you've just had COVID, so he's watched a lot of cricket.
Oh, mate. Yeah,
Some of the week.
I knew I'd get it, mate. I knew I'd get it. I was on the plane next to someone for 17 hours on the way back from Dallas. And I was like, this is the time. This is the time I'll get it. I mean, I've been on so many flights in the last 3 months. So I dodged it up until I got a little bit ill, and everyone had it in the West Indies. And then I thought, yeah, I've gotten away. And then but in the back of my mind, I had that, 17 hours next to someone on the plane. And anyway, I'm recovering from it, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'll cough occasionally, but no, I'm feeling pretty good now.
Well, that's good. And for those that don't know, who haven't seen the first couple of Dre is the bowling coach of Bangladesh, who have just had a great tour of the West Indies. We'll get to that. But first of all, let's just go through this test series, and particularly the last two tests. Fantastic series. I thought Australia was a bit underdone in that first test in Perth. We didn't play enough cricket leading into it. Even though Hazelwood bowled fantastically well on that first test, his pace was around 130 for most of the match, which is quite slow for him. So straight away I picked up that he was slow. And I thought it was a big risk playing him in the third test, given he got injured after that first test. Because I think he was underdone for the first test, then got injured and was going to be pushing it. But what a bunch of Iron Men, Mitchell Stark and Pat Cummins are bowling in that third test, the bowler down and just continuing to charge in. So what are your thoughts on them, Dre?
Yeah, yeah, some interesting thoughts here. Hoff's had a few injuries over the last couple of years, mostly the calf. I think like once you start getting a little bit older, and you start doing calves, as you know, as I know, that they can be a bit problematic. So I think for Hoff, it'll just be trying to make sure he stays fit enough to not so much fit enough, but if he just got to keep that calf loaded for long periods, even when he's not playing. And that's a hard one, trying to keep that calf loaded. So he's obviously an exceptional bowler when he's in the team, but he didn't have a bad replacement, did he? So Scotty Boland, every time he plays, he's a free. I think the only challenge for Scotty will be how he's going to face up in the Ashes. Given the last time we played, what that was like. But Mitch Stark and Pat Cummins has been excellent as captain. Technically he's been awesome. He gets the best out of Starkey. Starkey's been, he's been getting better. He's not the tear away, clean up the tail kind of guy that he once was. I think he's a smarter bowler now. He swings the ball a bit more, uses his wobble seam. He picked up some key wickets in that test series, and he swung the ball. So I think even just his variation was incredibly important for Australia. A good left arm is so valuable regardless of what team you're playing in. But Starkey just has this ability to bowl and keep bowling and keep bowling. And even when he's not feeling very well, he'll keep doing it. He loves playing Test cricket. So he's like you described him as an Iron Man. That's exactly what he is.
Yeah, and I thought he was in the first test. He was not underdone. I thought he was the one that really was on top of his game. Speeds were up, good pace and consistent pace, and that's how he's been for a long time. And I agree. The improvement in Starkey over the great fast bowlers do develop and evolve, and to stay around this long and still be such a weapon. And I think he's a better weapon now than he was tear away quick with, like you say, with that wobble seam, with his accuracy's got better as well. So yeah, I love watching, and adds so much in the field.
Yeah.
An athlete, and with the bat as Paddy. So we'll get back to those bowlers, but I just want to throw in this. I've never seen a 19-year-old who's 60 in his first test be such a talking point and ruffle so many feathers. He turned the best bowler into having three blokes on the boundary within the first couple of overs of a test match. A guy that's averaging, what is he, 13 in this test series? He had them flustered and he changed that game. If we'd had the similar batting lineup to the first three tests, the likelihood is we would have been 3 for 20 in that Melbourne test because it's doing plenty. And he completely turned it round and got us on the front foot. And I think he did that in that second innings as well in the Sydney test.
Yeah, definitely.
Where, they're all going, oh, he's playing crazy shots. He got it. Mate, we were 39 off 3 overs or 35 off 3 overs. Pressure off.
Yeah.
And they started against this kid with three blokes on the boundary. So, they can say whatever they want. He's playing ridiculous shots, but he helped turn the tide in this test series, I think.
No, I agree, mate. I'm in a group with with a guy called Akshay, he's our analyst for Bangladesh. He's an awesome fellow. He's Indian, and we've been getting into him about the Test series, and naturally, I got into him about New Zealand beating them at home. But there's been some good banter, and his opinion was that he thought that Sam's natural behaviour would rile up the Indians into a frenzy, and that would cost them a test match. I actually thought the other way. I actually felt like, like you say, here's this 19-year-old, and all of a sudden he's got 10. Because the only guy, probably actually 9. The only 2 guys that didn't run at him were KL Rahul and Rishabh Pant. So, yeah. But everyone else ran at him. He's 19, and I just really interesting the way he carried himself, the way that he wasn't intimidated. And I think that Indian team, that Indian bowling lineup has been quite intimidating for a couple of years. They've been exceptional all around the world. And so it would have really thrown them to have someone walk out and to just be so unflustered by them. To be so naturally in his own space. It sounds like he's doing a fair bit of work with Watto. Watto obviously improved through the roof as his career got more matured. You could see he went from a kid who was quite fiery to someone who was a lot more stable, a lot more calm. And so he's obviously teaching that to Sammy. Sammy seems to be, in this place where he's just completely happy being himself. And I think the Indian team probably found that a little challenging, that they couldn't fluster him. And so they were doing their absolute, their absolute best, their utmost to try and get to him. And I don't think it was a voluntary reaction in that first innings. I think it was an involuntary scenario where they just had to go at him, and it was almost like a really innate natural thing. So I think he adds a lot, even from a from a attitude point of view. I think that aspect of that little bit of killer has been missing. I think that that if you want to describe it, that Ponting style, this is who I am, and I don't care what you think. I'm going to be me, and the rest of you can deal with it. I think that's been a little bit missing in the Aussie team, not from an authenticity point of view, but more from a killer instinct point of view. And so I really admire the way he's going about it as a 19-year-old. He'll learn. The shot that he played in the second innings, it was described as a wild hack. I still think he's going to learn. Playing that shot, he looked disappointed. He could have played a different shot, absolutely. But if you bat the way that people expect you to bat in Test cricket against Bumrah and Siraj on that wicket, he would have been just another number in the chart for Bumrah. So, I admire the way that he went about it. I think it's awesome. And I think, when it comes to Test cricket and you're playing the best in the world, you can't just play like everyone else has and expect to do something different.
Yeah. And I look at that too. And they're complaining about Pant, playing that reverse scoop and trying to hit it over fielders on the boundary. Where Sam was trying to hit that, there's no deep mid wicket. So he was going for the space. He knew where he wanted to go. And if he hits it in the middle, how fantastic is that? But I think there's that short little cameo to get us, 40 odd without losing a wicket when, Ravi Shastri was saying, India need them 3 for 20, and all of a sudden we're none for 40 in 3 overs. Straight away, there's a lot of pressure taken off on a small run chase. So
yeah, absolutely.
And even I look at him too. He's so underdeveloped. His throwing technique's not fantastic, but he's full of beans in the field.
Yeah.
I think in the future, he puts on a bit of strength and power, learns how to, he's already got a powerful throw, but if he improves his technique a bit with that, he'll be hitting a lot of those balls way into the stands rather than just over them. And he's already got plenty of power. So,
Oh, he's got plenty of power. Yeah, that innings he played for the Thunder before he made his Test debut, he hit some incredible strikes. He's quite a natural timer of the ball, which is good. But Ross Herridge will get him going, mate.
yeah.
He's he won't. He doesn't look like the kind of kid who's shy of the work.
No.
So like he'll get every opportunity.
Yeah, well, mate, I had him. I don't know if you saw that. I had him at St George. Him
Mm.
and his brother turned up to pre-season training.
Is that why he left?
Yeah, probably. But he came in. He came in as an 11-year-old
Yeah.
to grade training, and I said to Jacko, the coach, I said, "Mate, why are there two little kids at pre-season training?" He goes, "Oh, they're good young kids. They live around the corner. Sam's probably going to play Green Shield this year as an 11-year-old, which is under 16s."
All right.
I mean, he did okay. He wasn't up the front, that's for sure. But
That's a big age gap at that age. That's a huge age
never
gap.
complained, and probably had him for 4 or 5 seasons with St George. And then he was with all the junior New South Wales sides. But he's only new to the professional cricket scene, so he gets a few pre-seasons under his belt too. The cricket athlete he'll turn into on top of the timing and the ability, mate. He's big future for Australia, I think. I hope. Now we'll go to Siraj. It's really interesting. Everyone was saying yesterday how lucky we were that Bumrah broke down, but that's not luck. I remember years ago, Andre Agassi beat Rafter in the Australian Open final. Rafter was on top, but started cramping up, and the commentator said at the end, "Oh, you must be a hollow victory with Rafter." And he said, "Well, no." He said, "Physical preparation and being able to last a 5-set match is part of winning." He goes, and I was better prepared than him. Now I saw this coming with Siraj and Bumrah. I don't know if you saw Bumrah on
He was
last
yeah
week in
on and
Melbourne.
off, yeah.
Yeah, he was really struggling. He could barely run the field, and
Mm.
which there's two things going on there. I know he trains as a bowler, and there's a lot of talk about training bowler specific programs, all that sort of stuff. But they're also forgetting that as a cricketer, you've got to chase the balls in the outfield. You've got to run between wickets. And I've seen him run chasing balls, and he's not in good speed shape. So I don't think there's enough volume of running in him for one, but two, Sam attacking him and Siraj in the first innings, I saw their paces, and this is what I used to get paid to do, to keep an eye on these things and to work out when people were vulnerable. Siraj and Bumrah's pace lifted about 8 k's an hour bowling to Sam when he attacked them in that first test.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to have an impact down the line.
Huge impact, yeah.
Because they didn't want to bowl that fast. Siraj didn't bowl in the 140s till the 60th over in Brisbane. And I sent Haydos a message asking, why he didn't answer. But for all the talk on Siraj, putting in all the time, he's Mitch Stark's pace was a 140 roughly or above the whole time, even when his back was sore and his ribs. And Siraj floated between high 120s and 140. So, and a lot of the time he was down near the 130. So they can say he charges in all the time, but I don't agree with that. I think he picks and chooses his time. And that says to me, I don't think they were physically prepared enough for a 5-test match series.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd know, mate. You're the expert when it comes to physical. If you go back a few months, I think Bumrah was just coming back from an injury. So it takes a long time to load up to be ready for 5 test matches, and then he bowls and bowls and bowls, and he's the weapon, right? Like without him, they can't win the test matches. Siraj awesome bowler, great backup bowler. But again, like you could say, if you take out, Camo, or if you take out Hoff, or you take out bowling out of that attack, well, they have got one person to replace. The only guy you can't take out of the bowling attack is Starkey. I think he's the one guy you can't take out of the Australian bowling attack, and then because that just shifts your whole dynamic of what that attack looks like. So with Bumrah carrying the team, I saw him cramping. The other thing was, you think about the cortisol levels of stress. that team's been under for the whole thing. And it sounds like there was a little bit going on behind the scenes. You know, it sounded like it was a little bit volatile. There was the reaction to Constance was a stress reaction. You know, that was a we're really under the pump reaction. So I think there's a lot bubbling going on. So I think, you know, when you're talking about your sympathetic nervous system and all of those things which keep you elevated, keep your cortisol levels elevated, you don't recover very well, and you're fast bowling, then you've got to recover, then you've got to bowl, and the frequency of bowling is really high. It's not like long periods of not bowling. It's a long period of bowling, short period of batting, long period of bowling, and I think absolute recipe for injury. So, you know, we saw Hoff go down, we saw Burma really struggling. And that's not unusual in a test series like that, with that frequency of test matches, B, frequency of bowling, and then the cortisol levels, which you know, they would have been under, both sides would have been under, particularly the Indian team. So yeah, those are all things you have to take into consideration. But you know, like I don't really want to comment too hard about whether they're fit enough. I you know, if they'd taken a couple more wickets in second or third test match, would have been 2-2, or might have been 3-1 the other way, you know. So it's just one of those ones that was a knife edge. But I think, you know, the fact that they were behind and chasing the game, and probably would have had really big expectations of how they could win this. They would have seen, you know, Warner's retired and Khawaja's probably getting to the twilight of his career, and there's a few gaps here. Smudge wasn't scoring heaps of runs, but then he came back and did well. They probably didn't anticipate Travis Head scoring as many runs and as quickly as he did. So yeah, like as you say, when it comes to bowling loading for fast bowlers, you know, if he's got a stress fracture or a stress reaction, that wouldn't really be surprising.
Yeah, and the other thing is the back-to-back test, and this is why I was concerned with, you know, as soon as I saw them having to push hard at Sam, and that's why I think that innings, it was only 60. I mean, we talk about debut hundreds, but this kid scored 60, and how it just changed the game, and making them push much harder than they had all series. But also, so there's back-to-back tests, so we know the risk of injury for fast bowlers with back-to-back tests. So for those who don't know, it's, you know, tests with only 3 days in between, or 3 or 4 days. In a 5-match series, the risk of injury is massively increases. Used to be only 2 days between those games. That's another story for
harder back in the day, mate. Anyway, yeah.
But so I knew they were going to be under pressure, but also I think Bumrah bowled 9 spells or 8 spells in that second innings, and they were short spells because of the rain on and off, and or coming back on when, you know, there was a chance, and so I know that obviously puts a lot more stress on a fast bowler to cool down, then have to warm up again, and bowl beyond from ball one. So, you know, it wasn't surprising he went down, but as we say, part of being fit and available for all the tests is being fit and available for all the tests. So part of winning, you need that. So it's not unlucky, I don't think. It's just there's a lot of management that could, and could there have been better preparation? Could there been better use of him? Things as a physical performance manager, physio, whatever, in bowling coach in international teams, these are the things you've got to look at and learn from. If someone goes down in a test series, okay, what can we do better for next time? So I'm not bagging anyone. I'm just saying this is what my view would be if I was there and I saw that happen, and the things I pick up for his movement in the field, how much he fatigued between spells, particularly that, you know, they say, well, what's that got to do with it? Him, you know, struggling to chase balls, and, you know, he's under fatigue. His legs are so somewhere up the chain is taking the strain from him trying to push hard and bowl good pace. So anyway, that's, you know, and I, you know, Hazelwood bowled fantastic in the first test, but his pace was down. So these are the things we pick up and we try and work on.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go to Reddy. Nitish Kumar Reddy. What a player.
Yeah, he's got, I mean, interesting, eh? Like I always had like this crescendo, then a big, you know, then a big fall. You know, it was almost like the 100 was this big weight off his shoulders or whatever, and then he sort of came crashing down from there, which is a real shame, because I felt like he was, you know, he was the other player in the team that was going to be the danger. He was going to be the guy that was going to keep us or keep India close to Australia in those dying periods. You know, him and Washington Sundar, because Washington Sundar is such an amazing cricketer. he's such a menace when it comes to where he bats. He could bat much higher. And so they India have this ability with all these amazing players. Like they do probably have the most talent at their fingertips. And so this young kid Reddy bowls with a medium pace, is good in the field, but gave it a whack. And that 100 at the MCG was awesome. Great to see the footage of his dad, when he scored his ton, because that's a big deal, giving up everything you have to try and make sure your son can make it. And so that's wonderful that really happened. And as much as you want to, if you're an Australian fan or wherever you are, you still want to see another human being achieving their goals. So I thought that was a wonderful story. I will though just jump back to Sammy Constas. We did have a conversation when I was in the West Indies with our coaching staff, and the first test, and Bumrah bowled that spell at the start, and everyone was like, "Oh, there's nothing that could have been done." And the conversation was, well, but something has to be done. You can't just let them do that. And so someone has to take a risk. Someone has to go out there and try and put him off his length. You can't just allow him to bowl, otherwise that's what you get. So, Sammy Constas, that innings at the MCG was as profound a effect on a game as I think I've ever seen in the first half an hour, 40 minutes. That was incredible watching. So, but yeah, look, I think India has, whether it's Washington Sundar, whether it's Jadeja, whether it's Nitish Reddy, they've got, even I can't remember the name of the young fast bowler that played in the last test match, but he was perfectly suited to the SCG, came in, whacked it in a length at 130, mid-130s, got ridiculous bounce. So he was no mug, he might not be Scotty Boland, but he certainly was not an easy beat. So India's got this wealth of talent, which is probably as a result of the a number of things, but the IPL really is paying its dues now.
Oh yeah, and I couldn't believe that Reddy was only 21. Like the way he batted in those first 3.5 tests, played some amazing innings. It wasn't easy out there, and he made it look easy. But I remember Kerry O'Keefe saying that he didn't like technically correct batsmen in Australia. They nick off, and on these wickets, it's some of the innings that Marnus played and Jay Swall, and when the ball's doing plenty, one's got your number on it. So, and even Rishabh Pant, like that innings,
yeah,
in the city.
Yeah, well, he did it 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get you to Brisbane. He just, that was ridiculous. That's some of the greatest test batting you'll ever see. And so, to do what he did, yeah, mate, look, he's going to get out playing like that. But you can't celebrate on one hand. Oh, it's amazing, and go, oh no, that's too much. And come on, I know that's the commentator's job, but that's, as a coach, if that's the way he plays, he's going to get out doing it. But he's also going to win you games. He's
going to win, more games than anyone else for you. Yeah. And he's, he knew there was a number on him. He had a number on him. He was going to nick one if he just. 100%. And so those 2 sixes off Stark. I've never seen that happen before.
No, he's excuse me. I mean, it's kind of, watching this test series, I'm sitting at home now going, well, how do I replace that? I need to go and find some supplement for that kind of addiction, because that was the greatest viewing. That's for me since the 2005 Ashes. That's the greatest test series I think I've ever seen, and there's been some great Ashes between Australia and England, but I don't think I've ever seen anything with such drama. Kohli running into Sammy Constas with a shoulder charge, and then them being completely flustered by this 19-year-old, and then Australia having the upper hand, and then a draw, and then India having the upper hand, and then it rains, and it was just, mate, it was 5 days every time, with the exception of the Sydney Test, of just, mate, I had my coffee ready. I had my fan on above me because it's way too hot at the moment. My fan, and I was just sitting here, could not wait for it to start.
Yeah, mate, I was working all my work and training was on not just the first ball bowled, but the pre-game show.
100%. Mate, I had everything worked around the lunch break and tea break, and I was like, nah, got 5 minutes left, we're done. So yeah,
And,
amazing.
and I had a session on the last day of the fourth test. I had a session on at 5 in the afternoon, and it was coming down the wire. And everyone was interested. I had the phone in my pocket on KO and listening to the commentary. The boys and girls went out for one rep. At the start of the rep, they lost the ninth wicket,
Yeah,
and as they were coming in for the finish, line took the last wicket.
yeah. What
So
amazing. Yeah, well, that was awesome. That's such an awesome that was such an awesome test series. On a side note, how is Australia going to replace Hazelwood, Cummins, and Stark? Because mate, they can't go forever.
no,
And they're all gonna be. I mean, they're all similar age. They're all gonna finish at similar times.
yeah,
So and when they go, that mate, that is a massive hole. I think that will be the biggest trio, and probably Gaz at the same time too. That'll be the biggest quartet to retire in the history of the game, I reckon. Like, there's no way anyone can replace those wickets, that experience. Camo's batting at the end, even Gaz in the fourth test. Those are, he scored some valuable runs in that Ashes test. I think it was Edgbaston. They were great runs, and that won a test match on par with those runs he scored the other day in Melbourne on the fourth night. Like, that was that was incredible. If he hadn't have scored those runs then and hadn't have put that partnership on with Boland, India would have gone into that with the momentum, only been chasing a slightly smaller target, and it would have been really nervy. So, that quartet of player is, and Smudge is close, Kawaj is close. There's so many people that are going to retire from that Australian team so soon, and it's going to be it's going to be like an exodus.
yeah. And that was one thing I had on my list. People say Lino didn't have a great input into this series, but his runs, as you just mentioned, and that's what I wanted to bring up, like him and Paddy's runs.
Yeah,
And we know they put a lot of effort into their batting, into working on their batting, and it's paying off. Like, as you said, that without Lino's runs, we may well lose that test in. Even the runs here, it was just enough to help us.
yeah.
But I go back years ago with India in Perth, and it was when Ishant Sharma was bowling wheels, and we got them all out, and we were going in, and he obviously put up his hand for night watchman, and he got in, and he was like ducking and weaving, getting hit, and I said to him afterwards, mate, really well done yesterday with your batting. He goes, oh mate, it was embarrassing. I said, mate, it's balls of steel. That's what it is.
It's not embarrassing, mate. That's courage.
Yeah.
That's courage. And he's not a gifted batsman.
You think, the best batsmen in the world are struggling at that stage on a Perth wicket with 20 minutes to go. He's a tail ender, and he's gone in and braved that.
Yeah. Well, what's the job description? The job description is not 50 off 20. The job description is get us through, and you're the least equipped person to do it. But do you mind? And I think that takes incredible courage. People don't realise the amount of courage it takes. As a tail ender, you're scared of the ball. It's one of the main reasons you back down the bottom is you're scared of the ball, because when you look at tail ender techniques, the likes of Tim Southey, myself, I could bat, but you have this fear when you go out there that all of a sudden there's a lot more thought process going on, and so that takes over. I could get hit. All of these things. So to face that takes true courage, and you have to do it, but you have to do the job as well. I was terrible at it, but I think the guys, the night watchmen that go out there that are A, super uncoordinated, B, are not very talented with the bat, right? They are incredibly brave, so because it's dangerous. It actually is dangerous.
Yeah, and I love the way our tail went about it. They've been such a big part of our test wins over the last, historically, really, since I've been involved. But now here's a tricky one for you. You probably won't want to comment on this one. I've got this this is what I've said. So I watched the whole New Zealand, like I'm a cricket nuffy, so I watched the whole New Zealand series against India. Again, once that finished, I was like, well, what do I watch now? But I've seen Gambier come in as the coach. He seems, he obviously plays a lot of shots in the media and with and against and for his own team. And I've noticed they seem a lot more on edge since he's come in. Now, is that because they're losing, or are they losing because they're more on edge? This is a good question, but he's talking very tough about Sam Constant and to harden up and all this sort of stuff, and how these senior players need to aim up or they might be out. But in his tenure, they've lost the series 3-0 in India, and now they've lost the Border Gavaskar Trophy. So my thinking is, well, surely his position's on the line. And two, have you noticed, they don't seem as happy a group and as a relaxed group since he's been coached. That's my feeling.
Well, like you say, they've lost. They lost. I mean, they beat us in India pretty convincingly. They bullied our bowling attack. It was a great experience actually for our bowlers because they played. We were on top first couple of sessions, and then we got our field placings a little bit wrong and allowed some pressure off, and they just capitalised on that pretty quickly, which is what they do, and they like to hit boundaries. So they beat us in the Test series, and then they lost 3-0 to New Zealand, which they haven't lost at home for God knows how long. And to lose to New Zealand was like, I was sitting there scratching my head, not because New Zealand's not a good side, but because New Zealand's not traditionally a great spin playing nation. We've had guys who have been capable in the past, Stephen Fleming, Scott Storris, Lou Vincent, in my era, and I think now you would look at the likes of Kane Williamson and Ross Taylor and Brendan McCullum as good players of spin, but realistically, you then have to then go and bowl out India in their own conditions. So that was an amazing Test series win for New Zealand, and so they would have been incredibly under pressure there. Whether it's got to do with Gambier, whether it's timing, whether it's a scenario that is a number of factors. He's a bristly character. Yeah, he absolutely is. You can see in his press conferences, he's frowning. He's very short with his answers. So look, I think it'll be a number of things. It'll be he's taken over. There's always egos to manage. How good are you at managing egos? And in that team, there'd be some massive egos. Like that's a team of huge egos, huge paychecks, incredible success. So I don't think a team that's losing is ever happy, mate. So I just think they're under pressure here in Australia. They came here probably with high expectations, much like when England in the Ashes, in the last Ashes, I'm sure the English and the English public, they had high expectations of 4-0 or 3-0 or 3-1 going the way of England, and it didn't work out that way. And so because it didn't work out that way, there was a lot of anger, a lot of pressure, a lot of disappointment. And so that then starts to get to you, and people start challenging you. So you get challenged by your press. And don't forget, Indian press would have been all over them. And they're subject to scrutiny like everyone else, but they have millions of followers, so they get millions and they get so many comments on everything. So they're under a huge amount. They're always under a huge amount of pressure. So when they're doing well, life's good. When they're not, it's not great. But that's professional sport. So I'm not sure how I can answer that other than they're not winning, so they're not happy.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like I look back to our Australian team, and the Australian team now says, they're very tight and they're happy, and and I always say, did we win often because it was a really happy and supportive environment, or was it a happy and supportive environment because we won all the time? Who cares? That's the way it was. So yeah.
No, but I mean, but look, I've never played in a team that was negative and didn't get on and won.
Yeah.
So I've played in teams where we all had each other's backs, and we won a lot because of that. I played in my very first experience of that was an indoor cricket team, and we all looked after each other. We all had to pay for each other's flights and accommodation, and we pulled up and looked after each other, and that was just how it was, one big family. And so sometimes we didn't win, but yeah, it was no one's fault. But we had a lot of success because we were so tight. We looked after each other, and we didn't single anyone out. And there was we were strong as the collective. And I think that's what, for me, that's the recipe for success. How strong is your collective? And then when things start to get really bad, when you start to lose a few games, what are the things that you see changing compared to when you're winning, and how do you get back to that? So that's teamwork 101.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I find it interesting. Like, I wonder how, because I watched the pre-game shows and the warm-ups and you see them all, the teams that are tight, they're getting on, they're having fun, and they're smiling, and someone like Rishabh Pant, I just wonder, he's a happy guy, full of beans, and I just wonder if that personality will bring the best out in him. Obviously, he brings the best out of himself, but if you go along to, I don't know, I've never seen Rowett, even in the New Zealand series early on when they hadn't lost the test yet. I've never seen him sort of he sort of was a bit under the flap. It didn't seem to be himself. Anyway, that's just subtle things I look for.
Yeah. Well, some of them are coming to, some of them are coming to the end, mate. Virat's not far away as well. Rowett's probably done. And the mental turmoil you go through with this, because that's been your identity for a long period. That's something that people don't really consider. Where they just think, oh, if I had millions and millions of dollars, I'd just retire. But actually, it's not the money. It's your identity. It's your purpose. It's your everyday thing that. And when that's taken away, that's a difficult thing to deal with, because then if you want to start something new, you're starting as an amateur, when you've been an expert all your life, so that's the biggest challenge with finishing, is you go from being, I'm way up here and this is how I do things and my routines are nailed, to I'm starting something new. I actually don't know what I'm doing, and that's quite scary. So people, it's not just about the money. It's not.
Well, I remember Darren Lehman when he was always on the tours. He couldn't quite crack the team. And I just jokingly said, "Oh, mate, what are you worried about? You get paid buckets to be here." He goes, "Yeah, but mate, I'd give it all back just to play,
100%.
And I said, "Yeah, I'm aware, mate. I was just trying to stir you up." But it's and the Indians historically play on for a long time. Like, I remember Rajamani, the great trainer from ICL, and who's now with Rajasthan Royals and kicking goals. He said to me, "Why do the Australian players retire at such a young age?" He goes,
"In surfing."
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's a really interesting one where you say you do have to start again, and the best advice is to keep doing something in cricket, because that's what's got you everything, and that's what you know the best. So
yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yep.
That was only meant to be like 15 minutes, but so much to talk about. Great series. I mean, it just the crowds, mate,
it had it all. It just had it all. Like, it is. I think about it and I smile, because everyone talks about how Test cricket's doomed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that. I would watch that. I would watch that every day. I would watch that and maybe it's because it's not every day that you see it, but mate, that is, days were just disappearing on me. They were just disappearing on me. I'm waking up in the morning, I'm doing my bits and pieces in the morning, getting my coffee, getting my smoothie, sitting down at my computer, getting ready to watch this, because I've big widescreen computer. I'm sitting there watching this KO, and I'm thinking, my day's gone. I've just watched 2 hours of Test cricket, 2.5 hours of Test cricket, and like, it doesn't even feel like 2 hours of Test cricket. It's gone. Like it.
Why is it lunch already?
Like, they're panning to the crowd. It's a full house, mate. It's a full house at the SCG. It's a full house at the MCG. It's just a full house everywhere. So, like, the Indian fans are the best in the world, mate. Like, they love the game. They get it and they support it. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. You'll always have more Indian fans than local fans.
Yeah.
But they're cricket fans, and they make the atmosphere. They are, mate, every single run was like, it just blows you away, the noise. So
the drums and
it gives everyone who hasn't experienced that, who went to the MCG or went to the SCG or went to whatever, they get the experience of a lifetime, because that's a one-off thing. You don't get to witness that kind of atmosphere when you play anyone else. It's just India. And so that was that's a truly magnificent experience going to a test match live to get that full house, get that noise, to get that understanding of what it means in India to celebrate cricket.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Andre. You're off to New Zealand tomorrow. And just we have to talk to you about just quickly your trip to the West Indies, first test win for Bangladesh in the West Indies for a long time, and get down the very powerful West Indian team in the T20 series.
Yeah, incredible, really. Like we bowled really well in the first test in periods, and then we sort of didn't really back it up with the batting. We sort of struggled with the bounce and the pace, and they were quite intimidating. But we've the good thing with this team is it's trending towards a bit more team based, and I think that's really awesome. Like this the younger group of players, they're all about winning for Bangladesh, and that was really cool. So second test match, we turned up in Jamaica, my first time in Jamaica, so it's my first time at Sabina Park. The crowd wasn't a big crowd, but man, they were loud and they were aggressive.
Fantastic crowd,
mate. So good. And then we bowled about it. Look, Miraz Mahedi is, who was our captain and was our most valuable player on that test trip, and then he played really well in the one days as well. Look, he was exceptional. His tactics were really good. The bowling choices, the attacking fields, the pace bowling unit has just been flying, mate. Like they have really been flying. But the key to that one was the runs. Like the pace bowling unit has been really good all year. The key was the runs. So the work that David Hemp's put in, and then alongside the new coach and Saladin, and then Phil Simmons as head coach. It's been awesome. It's been a really awesome experience. They're getting stronger. Nathan Kiley's the strength and conditioning guy. And he's just hammering them, and they're getting bigger and stronger. They're not loving it all the time, but they're loving the results. So it's been a great year for us. The T20s was in my second home in St. Vincent. Speaking of atmosphere, we had a full house there. With the drums and the band, and it's been 10 years since the West Indies played in St. Vincent. It was incredible. The hometown didn't let the nation down. So we managed to we scored enough runs, and then we defended really well. Our bowlers have been excellent in the T20 game. We got panned in India, but we learned a lot of things there. So the boys have just been getting better and better. So I'm really proud of how the boys have stood up. Really proud of the fight they've shown and the togetherness. And there's been some excellent. I think as well. The batting lineup in the West Indies. I think we kind of surprised them a little bit. They probably weren't expecting our guys to come out and to do what they did, and so we had a couple of guys come in and score runs and take on the short ball and give the variables back, and there's a few fines floating around, but it was great cricket, and I'm incredibly proud of the way the boys have gone about it. So great way to end the year. A little bit of a break now, and then back to Dhaka for the Champions Trophy in Pakistan. So looking forward to catching a few waves, and certainly won't be catching any waves in New Zealand. Water temperature's only 18 degrees. So I won't be catching any waves there, but looking forward to catching up with family and friends and then getting back to work.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Yeah. There's a few things to take out of that. You said your bowling attack was great when we spoke to you a while back. And I've been keeping a close eye on it, and they're clearly being led well. To Mahedi, he's number 2 all-rounder as well.
Yeah.
And 3, my 3 favourite crowds in the world, Indian crowds.
Yeah.
Besides Australia, of course. Indian, Sri Lankan would probably be, India's probably 3, Sri Lanka's number 2. For the noise and the excitement and the drums but the West Indies crowds, Barbados, and it sounds like St. Vincent as well with the metal drums and just
incredible. I haven't been to Barbados. We flew to Jamaica. So I was really excited actually to get to Sabina Park. But mate, the crowd at St. Vincent was just incredible. They were singing the national anthem. It was, mate, it was awesome. And I'm not really one to, certainly not in the international game, definitely domestic. I do a lot of laps in domestic cricket, but international game, it's not as accessible. But we were very lucky in St. Vincent. We had the opportunity to get some laps in, and I was just walking around, just taking it in. You know, I had bottles of water in my hand. I wasn't doing anything, but but just the odd bit of advice here and there. But it was just incredible, mate. The crowd and the stand actually was Arnold's Vale. The stand is huge. You don't realize how big it is. But the steel band and the drums that kicked off, mate, they were incredible. So it's actually should be our home ground. You know, we're 5 from 6 there. We played 6 games here in the last year. The West Indies haven't played 6 games here in 15 years. So we're going to petition to make it our home ground, I think.
Yeah, how good. Well, thanks, Dre. Thanks for everything. I'm glad you're over your illness.
Yeah.
Looking really forward to seeing this Champions Trophy in those conditions. And be keeping a very close eye on Bangladesh's results. So have a good few weeks off. We'll see you down the beach. And
you will do.
yeah, cheers, mate.